The president and first lady are due to arrive on Air Force One at approximately 6:35 tonight. You said the president had left the storm in Washington, but this is a day that the president is selling as a day of triumph, calling the investigation over and saying it is game over. Unfortunately for the president and his loyalists, that does not appear the case, at least in Congress and among Democrats who see this as a whole new opportunity for investigation into the Trump presidency. As you mentioned, the special counsel's report, all 448 pages of it, delineates a long list of possible connections between the Trump campaign and Russia, an interest in Trump loyalists and aides and campaign aides in those emails the Russians apparently had that were hacked from Hillary Clinton and other Democratic accounts to damage her. But in the report, the special counsel does say this appears to stop short of a criminal conspiracy. However, he also says this word collusion does not apply at all in this matter. Also, on the question of obstruction of justice, Attorney General William Barr said today there was no obstruction of justice. He also said for the first time he disagreed with the special counsel, who leaves open that question whether the president tried to obstruct justice. There were apparently dozens of instances where the president and his aides tried to stop or kill the Mueller probe. Special counsel Robert Mueller's report, finally released today, detailing the results of a wide-ranging 22-month-long investigation. While it finds not enough evidence of a criminal conspiracy, the issue of obstruction of justice is much more complicated. The report highlights 11 instances of potential obstruction of justice, finding that the investigation was allowed to run its course despite President Trump's repeated efforts to interfere, listing multiple instances in which he directed White House counsel Don McGahn to fire the special counsel. The report finding the president's efforts were, quote, mostly unsuccessful, but that is largely because the persons who surround the president declined to carry out his orders. Mueller ultimately reaching no conclusion on obstruction of justice, noting significantly, quote, if we had confidence after a thorough investigation of the facts that the president clearly did not commit obstruction of justice, we would so state.
The special counsel made clear that he did not exonerate the president, and the responsibility now falls to Congress to hold the president accountable for his actions.
The report shows upon initially learning of the special counsel investigation, President Donald Trump stated, quote, this is terrible. This is the end of my presidency. And used an expletive that is very well known. Today, though, a much different tone. The president maintaining his claims of vindication.
I'm having a good day, too. It was called No Collusion, No Obstruction.
His re-election campaign sending out emails in a statement, President Trump has been fully and completely exonerated yet again. Now the tables have turned, and it's time to investigate the liars who instigated this sham investigation. And again, to be clear, that word collusion, according to the special counsel, does not apply to this kind of case at all. We should also point out, while the president, his loyalists, the White House want this to be over, it is far from the case. Democrats are now believe they have a series of new inquiries to launch. They also plan to quickly call special counsel Robert Mueller to testify in public before the House Judiciary Committee. Also, another revelation in this report today, as many as a dozen other possible criminal cases have been offloaded by the special counsel to other federal prosecutors. Those cases are far from over. And then there is Roger Stone and that case. Much of that case was redacted from this report, and the players in that still not all identified. There were also brand new names involved in this investigation that were revealed in this report today. Now, the redacted report does include dozens of references to Florida, to Palm Beach, to Mar-a-Lago, as well as Florida residents. Also, the revelation that one Florida county did have its elections system hacked by the Russians. The references also include sensitive conversations that took place at Mar-a-Lago regarding Russian efforts to hack Florida elections, and the president's imploring of Jeff Sessions to reverse his recusal from the Russia investigation, something that's not legally possible. That apparently occurred at Mar-a-Lago. Now, the investigation found Trump associates and advisors had sensitive conversations pertaining to Russia at the Palm Beach Club as well. And in one case, then campaign advisor Michael Flynn called his own deputy to talk about the sanctions against Russia. Those are the sanctions it was revealed that he had discussed with Russian diplomats before actually the White House was in charge, before they had taken over from President Obama. Because of those lies, Michael Flynn was eventually removed from his position as National Security Advisor. The report does not specify, by the way, which of those government entities in Florida was hacked. But again, this is far from over. The president tweeting that Game of Thrones reference saying game over today, that is probably a wish more than a fact tonight. President, again, due to arrive here in just about an hour and a half or so. For now, we'll go back to Felicia and Tiffany in the studio.